seven, six, five, four, three, two, one.
Coming soon. Snake River Manufacturing is developing a revolutionary new way to design and build a custom kayak trailer. This modular design lets you customize your trailer one piece at a time, allowing you to grow as you go.
Looking for unbeatable customer service and a kayak shop that truly cares? At No Bad Days Kayak, Forrest and his team treat every customer like family. With unmatched attention to detail, they'll even ship your dream kayak anywhere in the U.S. No stress, no hassle, no bad days. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 19 of the Kayak Cafe. This episode is also brought to you by Vibe Kayaks. Whether you're chasing the perfect catch or just craving some peace on the water, Vibe Kayaks is your ride to freedom. Built for all skill levels in water, fresh, salty, or somewhere in between, Vibe delivers premium kayak performance without the drama or cost. From the ultra versatile Shearwater 125 to the throw and go agility of the Makana 100 to the ultra portable inflatables, every Vibe kayak is created to elevate your experience on the water. So gear up, get out there, and do what you do. Oh, awesome. Thank you all for joining me. This is episode 19 of the Kayak Cafe. If you get a chance, go to Snake River Manufacturing and check out all the stuff that Steve has going on. Steve has some amazing kayak trailers in the works that are just going to be revolutionary and blow your mind. If you get an opportunity, also go to No Bad Days Kayak and see what Forrest and the team have to offer. They are top notch on their customer service. So, all right. In this episode, I have a gentleman who is a wonderful person who's done a lot for our country. And still continues to do things that give back to those who are currently and former military and first responders. I have Jason Austin from Heroes on the Water, and I'm going to bring him in, and we're going to have a little insight into everything he does and who he is. Hello, Jason.
Yeah, hey there. How's it going?
I'm doing well. How's the weather where you are?
Ooh, tornadic, windy, typical Alabama evening.
So everyone should know that if things get squirrely and you disappear, like run for a space, we just talk amongst ourselves, huh?
Yeah, and I got a tornado shelter down in the basement, so if you see me peace out,
Yes.
you'll know why.
So for everyone who may or may not know you, can you just give a brief introduction?
Yeah, sure. Jason Austin. I'm a volunteer program coordinator with Heroes on the Water from the national side. I basically just manage a bunch of the volunteer-led chapters across the country. Army vet, combat vet, and survivor.
Perfect. What year did you get involved with Heroes on the Water?
Ooh, I want to say it was around 2010. I was in a hospital somewhere, and someone had mentioned it, and
you were just basically at that point a participant, correct?
yeah, yep.
How have things changed from 2010 till now? Have they at the organization, not necessarily with you yet, the organization?
Yeah, absolutely. So the organization grew and grew and kept growing. We added the board of directors, and we had multiple executive directors come through, and little by little there were changes made to the point to where we're at today. which we still try to keep that grassroots nonprofit feel.
Mm-hmm.
We have that corporate running behind the background, making stuff efficient.
Do you know roughly how many chapters there are now?
I want to say, we just added another one today, so maybe like 57 volunteer-led chapters, and
That's amazing.
say 9 therapeutic chapters right now.
So what's the difference between the volunteer and a therapeutic?
Volunteer ones are like the weekend,
Mm-hmm.
you have chapters that take people on the weekend or even during the week if they have time. The therapeutic program are usually set up through like a VA or a domiciliary. So they have a schedule, weekly schedule. They take veterans out, say every Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever their day is, for like an 8 or 10 week program.
Okay. So are they one-on-one, or are they as a group,
No,
or?
no, they try to work with like rec therapists and stuff with the VA.
Mm-hmm.
Veterans will sign up through rec therapy, maybe physical therapy, and they bring them out to the site, normally in a bus or if they're driving themselves, and put them on the water for the day.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was even an option. I've been involved with the volunteer
Right.
chapters, but I have not experienced the that particular style. So
Therapeutic side. Yep.
are they looking to expand the therapeutics, or?
Yeah, every year. So one of our long time staff members,
Mhm.
Joe Winston, out of Texas, he was with Jim in the beginning and kicked it off, and actually ran a volunteer led chapter for a long time, and then was a volunteer program coordinator like I am, and then he was my boss, and then he moved over to the therapeutic side and has done great things with growing that. They're on their 3rd year of the study called Operation Early Impact.
Mhm.
So he's got Dr. Shelby that they do surveys and they gather data, and the data has been compiled and proven and published, and all the things that I guess legitimize what we're doing to the world. A lot of people can say, "Oh, it's therapeutic," but if there's no
Right.
numbers, no statistics, nothing to back that up, then you're just making a claim. We have the numbers.
Yeah, if you don't have a bar graph, some people don't care.
All right.
So, and just for those that don't know, when you say Jim, you're referring to Jim Dolan, the founder.
Yes.
So, as your current position in the Heroes on the Water is the National Volunteer Coordinator, correct?
Well, I work for the national chapter,
Mhm.
and I'm one of 2 volunteer program coordinators. So I have a counterpart that lives out in Las Vegas. She's got the other half of the chapters that I don't have out of the 56 or 57 that we're running right now.
So, what's a typical day look like for you as the coordinator?
Well, I guess it just depends. I always know when there's events coming, because the days that I think are going to be slow, my volunteers blow me up, and the days I feel like they're going to be busy, I don't hear a thing. Of course, we have meetings and emails coming through all the time, and we're always trying to fill leadership teams that might be needing a little help. Always looking for the next best thing, trying to figure out where the next chapter is going to be, and doing a little research on that. That's probably one of the biggest changes to the organization since it started. Was we used to be reactive, and I feel like now we're more proactive and trying to go out there and make things happen. So
That's good. So. I myself, I am not of a military background, but I volunteer with Heroes on the Water. What would you say to someone who is non-military, who is into kayak fishing and wants to find some place to give back? I mean, do you think that it's a good place for them to come and participate?
no, absolutely. And of course, I mean, obviously I'm going to say that, but
Yes.
Servant leadership and volunteerism is what makes the program run.
Hmm.
We basically would not be where we're at today. We wouldn't have served. I mean, we're over 66,000 veterans and first responders and 16,000 family members in the last 16 years. Without volunteers, that would have never happened. The national staff can't do it alone. We have a ginormous pool of people that just want to give back, and some of the hardest working volunteers that we have never served. It's kind of one of those things where the veterans that volunteer get the veteran side of it. The first responders that volunteer get the first responder side of it. The civilians, they just do it out of the kindness of their heart, right? They just want to help and give, and they're probably some of the most passionate volunteers that we have. So yes, there's absolutely a spot for anybody. Um, we have people that do service hours, whether it's for school or a nonprofit, or sometimes they even get in trouble, right?
Hmm.
And we give them a place to go and we try to help them because that's what we do.
Yeah, I've seen that, and watching that experience of the interaction between all of the different dynamics that are there is quite an amazing thing. Um, with uh, with the Heroes on the Water, do you find that it's difficult to find volunteers?
Sometimes I feel like in certain parts of the country, or if they're in a really rural area, um, yes, sometimes it's just there's not enough publicity
Hmm.
to let people know that the opportunity's there. The volunteers, you know, a lot of them have full time jobs. They have limited bandwidth to make stuff happen, and that's where I feel like one of the major changes is us reaching out to organizations in those areas and trying to help, or even jumping on an airplane and flying out there to go see the chapter, and then driving around and going to talk to organizations and people that we've done the background and the checks and
Hmm.
made the appointments, and then go see them and try to get them involved, let them know this is who we are, this is what we do.
Because I know here in Tidewater, Steve Burge, I believe he is an ambassador. Do you have a lot of ambassadors that go to other chapters to help get them set up and help them along?
So we not really a lot. We do encourage chapters, especially the chapters have been around a while,
Hmm.
that are really good at getting them going and doing events and stuff. We kind of encourage them to go visit another chapter that's starting up if they're close to them, right?
Hmm.
Go see them, go say hi, give them a hand, let them know. It just happened. I just had my Panama City Beach chapter just got reinvigorated after a year off, had some stuff going on, and he went over to Emerald Coast this last weekend just to say hi and see how things went. So, we definitely encourage that. Steve's Steve's one of those unique people that he's got a gift and he loves talking about us. So, it's free labor. Hope he's
Yes.
watching.
If not, he'll watch it in a rerun because he and Patrick have coming back from a wonderful fishing trip.
That's more free labor.
More freely, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, those
They're
two guys
they're
work hard.
they are the perfect team.
Yes, they definitely
So
work hard for us, and it shows every year. So,
so if someone were to volunteer with you, what should they expect? I mean, I could tell you my. Oh, Steve's on. He saw. Oh,
oh,
he said my name. Yeah. So I'll tell you my experience. Like when I first started to come to the first one, I did not know what to expect as a volunteer. So if someone's coming to volunteer, what should they expect? What should they do? What should the expectation be on both ends?
so I feel like showing up for the first time, it's probably a little nerve wracking, especially if you're not from the military or first responder background. Um, as a volunteer, I know
Mhm.
even as a participant showing up for the first time, there's, no one really knows what to expect, and that makes people nervous. Don't be nervous. You know, if you know kayak fishermen,
Mhm.
pretty laid back people. There's not a
Yes.
lot that rattles them. Um, it's a community. Heroes on the Water, like I said before. I mean, we front facing is more of a grassroots. Rear facing is the corporate side, but we want people to be comfortable. You know, we don't want to turn people away. We don't want people to not come back because they weren't welcomed. Um, so I guess our expectations of volunteers is to have an open mind, understand that sometimes you're going to hear stories that you might not be used to.
Mhm.
Um, you might see people with disabilities, if you will. I don't think a lot of them look at them as disabilities, but sometimes there's stuff that we have to do to kind of accommodate and make them comfortable. Um,
Mhm.
99% of the time, you can expect to be fed really well. We've cracked that code, and I feel like a lot of people come back because the fishing part of it is very therapeutic and relaxing and whatnot, but coming back on shore and being able to hang out with everybody after you've relaxed makes all the difference in the world. And I feel like you've probably seen that, and
Most
people will
definitely.
start to open up. Um, so, just expectations is to be human, to understand that we're just people. Veterans and first responders are just other people that have done some not so ordinary things at some point in their life, and some people are dealing with it, and you'll see that, and some people deal with it, and you'll never know.
Exactly. Yeah, I will say when I went to the first one, they welcomed me with their humor
Yes,
really quickly. No punches were pulled. It was a beautiful, inclusive moment that I knew that. All right, yeah,
yeah.
they're
If they're
joking
picking
at
on
me,
you, they like you.
right? And you said about feeding you really well. I want to give a shout out to Kenny and Tidewater. He's the designated chef for most of the events we go to, and that fella can make some food. So yes, they treat you well. Um, so I'll say, as my volunteer experience when I got there, I didn't know what to expect. I show up, everything was not as I was in my mind thinking. It was just people going out fishing, and
That's
it
it.
was, and just help where you're needed, and communicate when the communication's needed. Be the hand when the hand's needed. So that was my experience. Now, one thing that I've noticed, and you can either confirm or dispel this myth. Like I walk around, and I showed you these. I have these flyers I hand out to everybody.
Hmm.
If I think you're military, you're getting one of these flyers.
Yeah,
And I see a lot of people when I say heroes on the water, and they're, let's say, um, they're not necessarily retired, they're still active duty. I feel like they don't want to attend because they're not the veteran yet. What would you say to someone who is, just a first year in who wants to go fishing? They're welcome just as much as,
come on. If
yeah.
you're wearing a uniform or wore a uniform or had a family member that was in uniform,
Hmm.
I mean, that's it. Come on, because sometimes, I mean, that's where we get our volunteers from. That's where we get our participants from. That's where the word spreads, and he goes back to his unit or her unit and says, "Oh my God, you know, there's these guys down the road that do kayak fishing, and I just had the most amazing Saturday afternoon, and now I'm full and I'm tired and I'm going to bed
Oh
because
yes.
they need it." So, yeah, come on. what's what's holding you back?
So how do you what is your area of getting new event participants? Like, what is your goal? How do you go about doing that? for someone who's out there that's just started the chapter and they're like, I have all of my pieces together, but I'm missing the people. Like if they give, you can give a direction for both volunteer and the participant.
So mostly social media.
Mm-hmm.
I asked my volunteer leadership team to go out and beat the bushes and go talk to organizations. Go to local kayak shops and leave rack cards or a flyer, post the events up, put them on Eventbrite. Some chapters have started Instagram pages. All the chapters have Facebook pages, and of course, when they get their trailer and the trailer's got the big logo on the side and they're out, people see it. Little by little, it's being more and more recognized across the country. Goals for sure to be nationally recognized, but and then on my side, if they're struggling with that stuff, then I'll call the VFW or a squadron commander for Civil Air Patrol and get some of the cadets out there. We have JROTC and ROTC programs in college that they need volunteer hours. There's fraternities and sororities that, so we just reach out to them and say, hey, here's an opportunity. I was at a search and rescue ground training for 5 months with my son on weekends and stuff. And we actually had an Air Force First Sergeant's course came out to see what Civil Air Patrol was all about, and it counted as their volunteer hours for the program that they had to do for their First Sergeant's course. So it's stuff like that where, okay, I got to talk to them about our program too. Like, hey, you're military, you're doing this. Have you ever thought about doing this? So you just kind of take every opportunity that you can get to talk to somebody, like you do, right? And just talk to them. If they look like they're military or have tattoos or T-shirts or hats or something, I mean, you can usually tell.
Mm-hmm. Especially in Virginia Beach.
Yeah, they're all over the place.
One in every two.
Right.
So also, I have written here about first responders. I know that you guys are welcoming to first responders. Do you the same thing with them? If you if something were to like locally here, we had 2 officers that were taken out in the line of duty.
Right.
And I was at a 7-Eleven, not buying anything I shouldn't, like a Monster. Anyway, he Sergeant was walking out. I grabbed the flyer. I was like, hey, I know you guys went through some stuff. If anybody needs to have a break, go. So is that sort of the same thing, like to beat the bush? Anybody who fits the mold gets the form, and
yeah. And so we actually we had a chapter up in Arkansas. So they had a tornadic event, and they went up and talked with the first responders that were on scene afterwards that were doing cleanup and stuff, and just said, hey, we're here for you when you're done if you need it. And they ended up putting on a private event for those guys, and got the police chief and fire chief and everybody involved, and the event went over really well. It was well received. But it's things like that, like if you're paying attention in your community and you know that there's a need, and you're one of the leadership team members or just a volunteer, it doesn't matter. It takes a village to get the word out. We do have a community engagement team also on the national staff who does a lot with newsletters and outreach and setting stuff up like this to help spread the word. So obviously a very valuable tool in the organization for us. But their reach is not millions of people walking around.
Right.
So,
and I would also say, and you can back me up on this if you think but not everybody fits the cookie cutter of who needs the experience. So you cannot look at anyone and know what their certain needs are at that time.
No, not at all. Which, and it's kind of crazy because I hear people all the time said, "Oh, I didn't realize you were a veteran," or "I didn't realize that you had gotten hurt," or whatever. And I'm like, "Good. That's the plan, right?" So, um, it's it's one of the things that I've always preached, going to events and talking to veterans about stop the victim mentality. You know, I see it a lot of times. People use post traumatic stress as a crutch. Um, it's an excuse to act a certain way or be irrational or just a turd sometimes. Um, and I call them out on it. I think one of the best things I ever did after one of my hospital stays was I went 30 days inpatient for a post traumatic stress inpatient therapy, and it was amazing. Like self awareness, the doctors say, "Oh, this is it. This is what you're stuck with." The doctors always also told me when I got out of Iraq and was in a poly trauma center that I would never walk again. But I mean, you know, 2020, I ran a 6:38 mile. So yeah, you're right. I'm not going to walk again. I'm going to run. So my thing is stop with the doctors have a diagnosis for you and you can accept that and live in that rut, or you can stand up for yourself and work on yourself and make yourself a better person. And it takes time. We're an instant gratification world now, but I kind of look at it like fishing, right? I mean, you don't always catch fish, but you're always having a pretty good time.
Oh yes.
So working on yourself and doing that stuff and not having that victim mentality and changing the way. So I can have a veteran moment in the middle of a crowd and no one will ever know. So, that to me is very, very important in that whole healing process and moving on, and sitting in a kayak does it too. You know, you can have your moment out there.
Yeah. And I also noticed that when um, I like to be like kind of a fly on the wall when the event's going on. I'm in where I can. I'm in where I can get in where I'm accepted. Well, not accepted. I'm accepted almost anywhere, but in where I'm needed. But watching people come off the water that don't really know each other get up under that little hut, if you will, with their food, and they're all just like talking, like, "Where were you? What were you?
Been
Who
friends
are
for,
you?" Like, bam, like
yeah,
that's what it's all about. And
it's that
uh,
community, that grassroots community.
yeah, and I've heard from some other people because I have a photo studio. We do a lot of military headshots, and I hand those cards out daily. And they're like, the camaraderie and stuff like that you have listed on your website is really missed when you get out.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
you guys really offer that. So, do you have any memorable outings that you can share with us?
Oh, there's so many. Um, so many. I guess one that kind of really stands out, and especially because this month being and Memorial Day coming up, we're a nonprofit partner with Carry the Load, which is a national relay that comes from all corners of the U.S. and meets in Dallas on Memorial Day, and they walk in memorial for everybody that's fallen. But we were out on the road. It was, I don't even know, several years ago. I was still driving one of the Howe wrap trucks. I feel like my title at the time was a national spokesperson for Howe. And I was walking with a guy and talking just about life. And you could kind of tell that he was struggling. So 5 miles later, we're still talking. We take a break. It's a checkpoint. I asked the kids on the bus, "Hey, you guys want to drive my truck for the next leg and just catch up with you there. I'm going to keep walking with this guy. And we walked, and he talked about some pretty deep stuff. And by the time we were done with the 10 miles, he said, "You got another 5 in you." So I walk with you all night if that's what it takes. Well, we did 15 that day, and parted ways. Well, him and his family showed up at the Memorial March in Dallas, and I saw him point at me, and his wife came down, and I thought she was going to break my neck again. She hugged me and said thank you, and that he was going to look into the program, that he had thoughts, the thought, right? The 22 thought, and we turned his life around, and he turned into a participant, and as far as I know, everything's still going well.
Heck yeah.
The people on the buses for Carry the Load are usually college students with a couple military trickled in here and there. But we had a stop in Georgia where they basically, one of the founders or both founders showed up to cook steaks on a curb with stuff that they found on the side of the road. They, 2 Navy SEALs, you can only imagine. But I had fishing poles with me, and there was a pond down behind this business, and I took those kids fishing, and it changed them too, because they hear all these stories when they're walking with veterans and first responders, and you don't think about an 18 or 19-year-old kid being exposed to stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's impactful, so kind of the dual role. It happened on that same leg. So the fishing took place, the walking took place, the continued outings with Heroes on the Water took place, and starting to heal the family all comes together with us. And that was, I think, one of the biggest things when Jim and I had sat down one day and talked about getting families involved, because I was always going out and doing stuff. And veterans are always, being invited to go do stuff, veteran stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the families are at home.
Right.
You can't heal if you can't heal the whole family. So I think one of the biggest impacts that we did was including families.
Yes.
And then later on bringing in first responders. So
yeah, I've seen a lot of great moments between fathers and sons and moms and daughters catching trophy bass.
Yeah.
Just like, it's better than you catching anything, watching them pulling out of the water.
Yeah, for sure.
And just so everyone's clear, that if you are a military veteran, active duty first responder, and you attend, your family can attend as well. So, veteran anglers said, are there any programs in the upper Midwest, specifically northern Michigan? If someone were looking for a chapter near them, what should they do to find the chapter?
It's on www.heroesonthewater.org, and then we do have a map. I'm going to pull it up real quick so I don't actually go under programs, volunteer-led chapters, and then find a chapter. And there's an interactive map. Let's see. Michigan, no. Chicago is the closest one to you. I know we tried starting 1 or 2 in Michigan, and they lasted a little while and then kind of fizzled out. It happens. People start chapters and they have all kinds of time, and then life happens, and if you're not building a good, strong leadership team that can step up in your absence, then, unfortunately, we have to stop service in those areas until we can find somebody else.
But if veteran angler were wanting to start one, he's more than welcome to apply and get it rolling.
Yeah. Absolutely. And
All right. Well, we're at the midway point, just a tad bit past. But some people have asked some questions of you, sir, and it's sponsored by Kayak Coffee. Everyone who entered a question is entered in a drawing, the monthly drawing for the Kayak Coffee giveaway. I have to do my obligatory sniff because it smells amazing. All right. So this first one is from Josh Welch. And Josh asked, can you explain what resources are required to bring an event to someone's local town?
So, just the down and dirty, if you wanted to start a chapter in your area, basically just need a 4-person leadership team, like a coordinator, assistant coordinator, a treasurer, and a secretary. Get those people together. You get on my boss's calendar and set up an interview. She's going to ask a bunch of questions and make you really think about your life choices going forward, because it is a big commitment. If the interview goes well on both sides, because you might get through the interview and be like, wow, that's a lot to take a bite of. But if it goes well, then we start the process and get you entered in the computer and start training and communicating and getting background checks and stuff done for everybody. Paperwork signed. We start the process to figure out what equipment that you want to order. And really just depends on what kind of fishing you're going to do, trailer wise, if it's going to be open or closed, just all the things. We do have relationships with just about all the kayak companies around. Paddles, PFDs, the industry definitely supports us. So we kind of pass that on and get you guys started. And then at some point, when you feel comfortable, you'll have an event.
Heck yeah. The second question was, if you had to change one thing about your organization, what would it be?
Ooh. I don't know. I feel like we do one thing really well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was by design. Jim was always talking about KISS, right? Keep it simple, stupid. Just it's kayak fishing. We're not trying to complicate it or anything else. It's just kayak fishing. So I don't think I'd really change anything with what we do. I think if I was going to change one thing, it would be that we have more chapters and more volunteers come out of the woodwork and just blow this thing up to where
Right.
we can service all those communities, like up in northern Michigan or out in the Midwest somewhere on a stream that's, there might only be a couple of veterans, but they might need it. So,
that's true. And is it difficult to get people to volunteer? I think we covered that just a tad bit, but
yeah. So yes and no. A lot of times it just depends on the area. It really depends a lot on the leadership team and how much they're out there in the community talking about how. I feel like the bigger chapters that have that time to go out and do the big push and bring the awareness to the chapter are more successful recruiting volunteers. And then some do everything they can and they just can't seem to crack the code. A lot of people, that's why I say this whole interview thing too. It's a big scary thing, right? Now you're in charge of a chapter and people are going to depend on you. And if that's not something that you've ever done before, it'd be scary.
I can imagine.
But we're here to help, right? So, I mean,
This is
like when we were on before, my phone, everybody was getting off of work, right?
Yeah.
Phone just blows up. And I tell my chapters, like, you got until 10 o'clock my time to get a hold of me. After that, I'm going to bed. And then 7 o'clock in the morning, if you got questions, here I am. So,
All right, this is from I've never heard of this guy before, Stephen Burge. Yeah, he says, "How often do you get to visit other chapters, and why is Tidewater chapter your favorite?"
whew, good question, Steve. So often I just had to come up with a schedule, and I'm not really on schedule this year because I've had some health stuff going on at the beginning of the year, but we're over that. Um, so every other year, at the number of chapters I have now, I should be able to visit chapters, all my chapters, half of them one year, half the other year, and then go back again. Um, as far as my favorite chapter, so Tidewater, they do an amazing job, and you will never hear me talk bad about Tidewater. Them, along with TKAA and the support that they've given us over the years,
Mm-hmm.
truly amazing. And those guys, they do a really good job, and they go above and beyond. I can't have a favorite kid publicly, but those that are out there that are listening, if you know, you know, right? That's the thing now. If you know, you know.
All right, the second question: what is the perfect fishing kayak?
Ooh, it's it's the one that's floating that you can afford
That's true.
for sure. And that's always been a thing with me, especially so I've had two how wrap trucks over the years. My last truck I did not wrap, but I've always kind of stayed away from favorite. Right,
Mhm.
I've fished a lot of them, and some have a better served purpose in some waters, and some are better served in other waters. Some just need to be left at Walmart.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, favorite. I don't really have a favorite, but I can tell you that if I don't have to paddle and I can pedal, however that's configured,
Mm-hmm.
I'm in.
And this last question: what are some of your favorite fishing styles, and why is Tidewater chapter your favorite?
Favorite fishing style. So I moved to North Alabama about 3 years ago from Louisiana, and I grew up in upstate New York, so it was always freshwater. But I quickly became a saltwater junkie,
Mm-hmm.
and Louisiana absolutely ruined me for fishing freshwater. Um, so my favorite freshwater, I love fishing for reds. Shark is actually my absolute favorite to fish for, and don't care how big it is. Um, I love going down to Sarasota tarpon fishing and seeing that big hammerhead and just throwing a 50 wide with a big chunk of mullet on it just to go for the ride.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, plus, if I got the hammerhead hooked up, all the charter captains can land their tarpon without getting eaten. So they like it when I'm out there too.
This is from Rudy Yarworth. He said, "Are there any new programs being developed by How?"
Oh, so the therapeutic side has kind of extended off season, and I, I don't even think it's just off season anymore. They started getting into rod building to
Mm.
keep the veterans engaged. Um, I think rod building and fly tying for cognitive reasons and therapeutic reasons is huge. Um, and they're really starting to learn that. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's not a study at some point through us that's done with that. Program wise, as far as chapters, um, yeah, we just opened one today in Long Island. So I don't know if Rudy's talking about the programs as far as the chapters or stuff going on, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's going to be, we're growing for sure.
Heck yeah. And his second question: where do you see How in 5 years?
Yeah, I think that's probably a question for Neil, our executive director, but uh, his vision and our vision, I think, pretty much line up. Um, we're still going to be on the map with a bigger footprint. We're going to have the ability to raise more money, get more volunteers, and start more programs. Um, I feel like if we can have a HOW program in every VA hospital, you know, I don't see it in 5 years, but eventually. So, that goal is to keep trucking along and making that stuff happen.
I like it. And this last question: will there be a charity fishing tournament sponsored by HOW this year?
Yeah, no, unfortunately not. The Jim Dolan Memorial Tournament, I feel like it just didn't take off the way we thought it was going to. And there was a lot of time put into it. I think the term is we didn't get a lot of juice for the squeeze.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not saying there's not going to be something that doesn't come back. But as far as that memorial tournament that everybody look forward to every year, not on our side. Now, there has been some interest from some other people to start or restart that. Um, I can't speak for them now. It's one of those industry things where
Right.
until it gets announced, but keep your eyes open. You might see something in the near future.
The one thing that I saw with the Jim Dolan tournament was it was open to civilians, but it was hard for me to look at the documentation to realize it was open to civilians.
Right.
And I think that you know I wanted to make sure that it was a loud spoken. Everyone can do this because it's a benefit to anyone can.
And,
So
and I can tell you, so MK is on our CC and community
Mhm.
outreach. And that girl worked her tail off to try to get the word out. And it's just, she
yeah.
came in even after it had been going for a couple of years. So it, it just, it wasn't from a lack of trying.
Oh no, I'm not.
She about killed herself trying to make that thing happen and keep it going. And finally they just, they had to pull the plug. And I don't, there's
Yeah.
probably nobody that was madder about it than me. But
Yeah, as someone who's had plenty of long hours on things that didn't take off, I know that feeling. So
yeah,
this is from Philip Huddick. He is the owner of 47 Lures. He said, "What does a 5-year plan look like for Heroes on the Water?" We covered that. What was your inspiration for starting a water-based charity? So, what was the inspiration for Jim for starting that? Do you know?
yeah. Actually, so the first story, there was an army officer that was involved in the beginning of it too, and basically they had a veteran that they took out fishing. I'm not real sure if it was, I feel like it was kind of like a test because the army officer was on the medical side,
Hmm.
almost like a test for physical therapy and exercise, and just like this guy needed it. And they took him out, and he got back on shore. And from what I hear, that was their aha moment. Like, they kind of all looked at each other and saw the change from the time that this soldier had started and when he came back, and then the feedback from his mother was like, he hasn't smiled since he's been back, and he's over there smiling. So they were like, hey, we might actually be onto something. And there was I think it was the kayak group down in
Hmm.
South Texas that sort of facilitated that. Joe Winston, who is with the therapeutic side now, he was part of that whole deal when that started. And Jim went and bought the book Nonprofits for Dummies, and made it happen. Like,
Heck yeah.
that's
That's awesome.
beginning. And
Yeah.
here we are 16 years later, and living the dream, as he said.
All right. So this question is from Chase, and Chase is from Southwest Indiana Outdoors. So this is going to lead off into the last portion. Usually I try to end things around 9 o'clock, but I'm just going to let you. I want you to tell your story, and we end when we end. So,
We can do the down and dirty version.
so his question is, how did you get started in Heroes on the Water? And I think you have a story that starts on April 13th, 2007.
Yep. So on that day in Iraq, I was in a vehicle, an ASV, minding my own business, going for a ride, and they decided to blow us up.
Mm.
So we fast forward over 900 days later, polytrauma centers, hospitals at Bragg, Fort Gordon, couple surgeries. Now I'm looking at December of 2010. After 19 years service, they said, "You're done." So the explosion broke my neck, my back. I had pretty severe trauma to my right leg, my hip. But they put me back together. Left frontal and parietal brain damage, bunch of hearing loss, some vision loss, and of course the mental side of all of that. So, like, I get it, right? I can't deploy anymore. I'm broken. What do I do? So I had no idea what to do. During that 3 years, pushed my family away. And so a lot of us get to that point, right? We're a victim. I have post-traumatic stress. Woe is me. And my own fault. Like 100% my own fault. Met my current wife at the time. She lived down in Bradenton, Florida, but she was up here in northern Alabama. And this is, I left out of Redstone. So things were going, but they're not the same. I had a daughter, a very young daughter at the time, and really no forward vision. I believed the doctors that I was going to not be right the rest of my life, and I was probably going to push everybody that ever meant anything to me away. And I just got to that point where I had made the decision. Firearm was purchased. The decision was made. The note was written. Apologized to everybody, and went to go on alive myself, and my phone rang, and it was one of the volunteers from the chapter down in Sarasota that said, "Hey, what are you doing tomorrow?" I had no idea who this kid was. I said, "I don't know. I wasn't planning on being around. What's up? Who are you, and what do you need?" And he said, "Oh, yeah." And he introduced himself and told me who he was with, and I kind of remembered from being in a hospital, hearing about the program. I was like, "Oh," and he said, "Hey, why don't you, I'm going to give you an address or text you an address. Meet me at this boat ramp tomorrow, and we'll go out and chase some redfish." Well, that was just enough pause for me to rethink what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And so I met him that next morning. It's myself, and he had actually called another veteran, and he had the kayaks out and everything. And that was the first time that I'd saltwater fished in a kayak, and literally fish everywhere, right? I mean, I see them in schools swimming under a kayak, and they are jumping and doing all kinds of flips. And I fished, and I fished, and I fished, and I fished more, and I didn't catch a thing. I was like, man, I suck. at this fishing thing. But something changed. I don't know at what point, but I'd forgotten about all the pain in my neck and my back. I'd forgotten about all the stress. I'd forgotten about the ideations that crossed my mind for every minute of every day before that. And that whole being self-aware, right? That 30 days of that was my aha moment. I was like, wait a minute, there's something that I can do, because before you go from high speed to very, very high drag, you feel useless, right? Like, I can't deploy. I don't have soldiers anymore. I'm not in charge of nothing. And now all of a sudden, you're your own captain on your own boat. Good thing I didn't need that to survive, because I'd have starved to death that night. But I did find out that mullet don't really eat anything. I had no idea what mullet were, but I learned that day that they suck.
Yeah.
So, they're everywhere, but they suck. But that was it for me. I decided that I was going to change the way I looked at life. I decided that I was going to be that self-aware person, that I wasn't going to be selfish. I wasn't going to check out. I wasn't going to do that to my friends or my family. And pretty much dedicated the next 16 or 15 years, going on 16, to getting other veterans to understand that, we're here for you. It works. If you want to show up and be the victim, talk to me. Right? I've been there. I can relate to most of the people that are sitting on a couch that feel like there's no hope, because I was there. I got it. And I promise you that 6 inches between your left ear and your right ear can change everything. So that's why I'm here. I'm here because of Heroes on the Water, because of that phone call. It's funny because we were at ICAST several years later, and he is in the industry and was working at a booth. And I said, "You know my story?" And he's like, "Yeah." I said, "Do you know who made that phone call?" "No, who was it?" He never knew. So it was a moment for him too. You just never know.
Yeah.
That one phone call, that one flyer that you dropped off at somebody's door or that you met, might actually be a turning point in their life.
Yeah. There's power in the connection. You just have to make the connection.
Right. And that's why we're here. Like, we beg people like you to help us get the word out, because it's so important to get those numbers down.
Yeah. I grew up in a family where my grandfather, my father would talk to a street post if it would, if he thought it was going to listen. So I've never had a fear of talking to people. And I've seen with them and in their communications that you just never know. You never know what your little greeting of hello will do to someone,
Yeah.
Even people that look like they're mad at the world, if you just like treat them normal,
Right.
then things can change. So now it's a powerful story, and I appreciate you sharing that with everyone.
I got through it without tissues.
Yeah,
That hasn't happened in a while.
I usually get allergies. I was listening to one of Patrick's stories, and I was like, man,
Yeah.
gotta look up. Yeah, and there's stories everywhere. I mean, you just gotta
Yeah, I'm just one of so many stories
exactly
that are out there, and they're on the website too, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
On the top bar, there's a link for impact, and then success stories, and you can read about all kinds of people that have gotten into the program that's changed their life totally. I mean, if we got a second, I just had a chapter start in Junction City, Arkansas, who was started by a former chapter coordinator in Louisiana, and he struggled with addiction and stuff, and then got into Heroes on the Water and cleaned himself up and just did amazing things and started a family. And then he kind of got away from How because of health issues and medical issues, and he's back, right? So he kind of, and I knew what I was doing when I talked to him, right? Because I feel like I had given him enough time. He's a really good friend of mine. Um, so I needed some equipment picked up. I knew that we were supposed to meet in Louisiana for an event. I said, hey, instead of me driving and you're coming up, can you do me a favor? And he goes, wow, what's up? And I said, well, chapter's closing. And he was like, oh, well, wait a minute. I caught a big one that day, right?
Yes.
Like, that's the proactive side of my job that I love to do. And the relationships that have been built over the last 15 years are still in place. You know, even people that aren't with the organization anymore, we're still friends. We still interact. When I'm in town, I still want to see them. We still talk. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
I highly recommend going on that and looking at the success stories. Because he's, like I said, that's just one of many. We have a civilian, same story. He's up here in North Alabama, but he's all about the outreach and struggled with all kinds of stuff as a civilian, but gets it, right? We dealing with something is dealing with something. I don't care if you wear a uniform or don't wear a uniform. Addiction and depression and all that thing, it's the same. We're no different. We're humans going through an event, and we can relate. And sometimes I feel like civilians don't feel like they can relate to the military, and that's what holds them back. Don't hold back. Like, and I promise, if somebody says well, you don't know what I went through, send them to me. Right? I got you. I will definitely make a point to go have a conversation with them and try to educate them on volunteerism and what people, their hearts, what they're trying to do for us as a community, and they're no different.
So let me ask you this, because I can only imagine, but for you in your position in the military, what you went through, and now volunteering, do you feel like you're back in the mix again? I mean, because it's sort of like being in charge of a bunch of people. You're wearing all the hats. You've got things to do. If someone out there is missing something to be in charge of or be part of, really hands on, do you feel like it's not a replacement, but it's a great filler of that missing camaraderie and sense of, I don't want to say sense of purpose, but something like that?
It is a purpose. Starting a chapter, I mean, short answer is absolutely yes. I have coordinators that are retired command sergeant majors, right? And they run a tight ship. Things happen. It's done with military precision. The chapters are run perfectly, right? And it can be, I think this is the biggest thing too, is it can be as big or as small as you want it. Our requirement to have 4 people on a leadership team is for your benefit. If you're going to start a chapter, excuse me, it's so you don't get burned out, because trying to do everything doesn't work.
Right.
Or it'll work for the first year, and then you're like, man, I can't do this anymore. And then it goes away. But, the outing that touched my life, saved my life, put me in a completely different place in my life was 1 volunteer and 2 participants. You don't have to have a 22-foot trailer filled with 40 boats and putting on an event for 100 people.
Yeah.
It can be a 2 kayak trailer or a 4 kayak trailer that you can take a family out. on an afternoon, and
Yeah.
it changes lives. And that's one of the big things. We have some really big chapters out there,
Mm-hmm.
and their leadership team members are getting ready to step away after decades of service, and people are scared to take it. So
Yeah. Yeah. I remember going to I think it was the second event with Tidewater, and it was raining. It was a nasty day. And I was like, what do we do in case of rain? And Patrick looked at me, he's like, they're coming. They're coming. And we just set up, and sure as anything, rolled up. It was no different rain, or they just, I was like, this is amazing.
So there's a term in the military: if it ain't raining, we ain't training. Right?
Yeah.
It seemed like you'd be garrison, and the weather would be amazing. As soon as you packed your gear to go to the field, it started raining, and you're miserable and wet the rest of the week, and you just embrace the suck, basically.
Yeah. You could not tell with anyone there that it was a rainy day, or it was just, it was a beautiful day and a rainy day, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah.
but
They learned to embrace it.
awesome. Well, I think we've covered a lot here. Is there anything you want to hit on before we get off? If we missed anything?
I appreciate you having us on, giving us a platform to get the word out. Hopefully your people watching and people in the comments got a little bit of education and can kind of look into it. And obviously, if you have any questions, you just go to the website. I think you can find me on there. I'm a pretty easy person to find.
Oh, yes. I think Steve jumped off when you didn't say he was a favorite.
Yeah, or Steve.
He's. I hope Patrick's driving, because Steve's probably crying in the car.
Well, I'm sure they'll be back to Gunnersville at some point. I think they had a lot of fun.
Oh, yes.
So we'll see him again. We'll give him a hard time.
Awesome. Well,
Lunch.
I appreciate you. I thank you for your service. I thank you for everything you're continuing to do. And if anyone out there hasn't, then they should go check out heroesonthewater.org. I talk about it all the time. It's a great experience. It's a great opportunity to give back and do what you love, kayak fishing. So go make that happen. So I'm going to put you in the background. I'm going to say goodbye to everyone, and then I'm going to come on and we'll finish up.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, everyone. That was episode 19. I think it was an amazing episode. We got to hear a really powerful story from a veteran who lived the experience of what giving back can do to someone. So even if it's not Heroes on the Water, there's got to be some place close to you where you can give your time, or at least acknowledge someone's existence in your day-to-day life. Also, big thank you to Snake River Manufacturing. They're sponsoring this and every episode throughout the year. So go to snakerivermanufacturing.us and check them out. Also, No Bad Days Kayak. You can go check them out. Say hi to Forrest. He's a small to medium kayak shop in Texas that needs everybody's help to keep them open, just like everybody else around this country. If you've got a small mom and pop, swing by and say hi. Also, Vibe Kayaks, they are sponsoring this and a couple episodes throughout the year. So go to vibekayaks.com. They've got some great opportunities to get you on the water for almost any budget. Also, if you are in the market for any kayak coffee, which smells and tastes amazing, go to kayakcoffee.com and use code CAFE20 for 20% off. And every single cup that's purchased through Nico's Art Therapy, every single penny goes to help Nico and his therapy. So thank you again for joining me. And I look forward to seeing you on episode 20 next week.